Hi there, thank you for joining me for this second broadcast of our short prosecution reviews. Hopefully some of you have seen the previous one and got some value from it. So this one's going to be a bit shorter, not too much of an introduction like the last time. Thanks for joining me. I just want to do a quick sound check here for anybody that is online. If you could just drop a message into the chat box to let me know that you can hear me okay, that would be really helpful. But we'll crack on regardless. So let me just make sure we got everything set up properly here. Okay, so this one we're going to look at another prosecution that's just went through the courts, and this one isn't just as sort of severe, I would say, as the previous one we done, but there's a reason why I wanted to chat about it, because it's something that we would experience quite a bit in our own consultancy and our work. So it's about a granite and marble worktop firm that was fined £26,000 recently. No one was injured in this case, in this particular incident, but it was just a case of basically the HSE getting involved with this company, recommending that they put some provisions in place, and then those provisions ultimately failing and not being put in place properly, or not being held as control measures for a long enough period of time. And then the HSE called out a second time, and that's when they were prosecuted. So I'll show you a photo here if I can get it up on screen. Essentially what happened was this granite worktop business, what they would be doing is cutting raw materials, shaping them into kitchen worktops and the like, as you can see hopefully in the photo here that I'll throw up on screen. This is the type of the machine that we're talking about. So we would see this type of what would be called a CNC, or automatic computerized cutting or tooling machine in a lot of engineering businesses. As you can see here, the actual machine has some doors around it, and my understanding is that these were fitted. Possibly the doors themselves were only put on after an initial HSE visit, and they were interlocked. So what that would mean then is if the door, or if the tooling was in operation and the machine was going, if the doors were opened, it would automatically shut off. So it's a safety mechanism, if you're not already aware, just to make sure that nobody comes into contact with that moving part or moving parts. So what happened was the initial investigation recommended guarding and interlocks on some of this equipment. It was installed, but then during the second visit, they found that the control measures that had been put in place, like the doors and the interlocks, had been bypassed, or some of them or all of them were not working properly. So that's why I picked up on this one, because we have seen this quite a bit in our own practice, and it is a common problem. And obviously on a Monday morning, it may give you something to think about if this is the type of machine or equipment that you would work with, or as part of your operation or your work experience, you do come across this. So just looking at what we can learn here. But before we actually go on to that, I'm not sure how many people are on live here, but with the guards or the doors opened here, if that machine and tooling was in operation, what would be the problems there that you could see that would be created by that not working? If anybody wants to drop a comment, then that's much appreciated. Just have to see where I can see these comments. If you do put a comment up. Okay, well, I mean, just to go on then, really the main problem, as I've already touched on, is exposure to the moving parts, which obviously is an issue in itself in terms of potential injury coming into contact with those fast moving sharp parts and so on. That's pretty self-explanatory. Hopefully as well, you can see there in this type of environment, you would also have the risk of dust exposure. There'd be a huge amount of dust generated from this type of process, as you can see in the photo itself. And let me just try and minimize this screen here a second so I can see properly. So yes, the dust itself, obviously, if you're exposed to that, you can imagine granite, marble, there's a large significant risk of harm from exposure to that. So that would be a secondary risk that would be concerned about. Yes, some of these tooling machines would have a wetting down feature where you would have a liquid used to damp down that dust. But as you can see, here's quite a lot of dust present in this area. And here's another photo here where you can see it a bit closer up. So there are two of the main obvious hazards that we'll be dealing with here in this instance. And obviously the HSE were concerned about that. So what can we learn from this particular prosecution then? Well, a couple of things that I was thinking about. First of all, I've already mentioned it. The guarding and interlocking of your moving parts and machinery is key to just the safety operation, the safe operation of it. So that's something to think about if you are involved in managing or operating machinery, managing, supervising, or as a health and safety advisor, to make sure that people can't get close to those moving parts when they're in operation. That's something that a lot of the time it may not even be inherent in the design of the machine, but has to be done proactively or retrospectively, to put in adequate guarding thereafter. So it's worth just checking if you are operating machinery, is there adequate guarding in place? Are there interlocks, mechanisms that will shut down the machine if, for instance, a door or a guard is removed or opened? The second thing then is more administrative, and that's something that HSE picked up on in this case, and that is just checking, putting in a regime of checks as you would as part of your sort of machinery safety programs, just to make sure that all the adequate bits and pieces are in place. So if you have interlocks, are they in place, are they functioning, or have they been bypassed? And that's something you would hope that checks would pick up on. Another thing to remember here too is a lot of the time the machine operator or machinist will be doing the checks. So you need to be careful in this instance, and we'll touch on it in a moment. Sometimes it's not in their interest to do the checks as well as they should be, because perhaps if it is the operator that's bypassed an interlock, for example, then it perhaps needs to be somebody else that's doing the check on it to see that everything is really in place as it should be. So that's something to bear in mind. That's the second thing I would think about. The third thing then is, if you do find that something has been bypassed, then like an interlock or a guard has been removed, the big question then needs to become, why has it been removed? And in our practice, in my experience, there's two real main reasons that I would say that typically crop up. First of all, it could be an equipment inadequacy or a poor design of the equipment for the application that you're using it. In other words, the person can't get the job done to the right quality or within the right time frame without circumventing the safety mechanisms. So there needs to be a question or an investigation or a discussion around, is the process or the equipment design adequate? Can it be changed to suit the actual needs of the business and the operation? Because clearly it's not adequate for the operator in its current state. The second thing that we would see, and that's probably more prevalent, I would say, is just the operator has removed an interlock or a guard because it made the job easier to do or less hassle, or it's just sped the job up and the ability to get products through the production line quicker. And usually that's more of a choice by the operator, and in many cases it appears to us in experience that the management or supervision doesn't even really know that an interlock has been bypassed, for example, or they could have very much maybe likely to turn a blind eye to it as well. So these are all sort of things that we would see. And in that case, a question need to be asked around, if the management does know about it, what is the safety culture? Why is that being allowed? Obviously, if someone does come into contact with the machinery or gets exposed to the dust, for example, the outcomes for health or potential injury are severe. So that's the things I would think about here. It's something we see a lot of, as I say, in our practice when it comes to safety devices that have been put in place. So hopefully this is helpful just to get your mind thinking about the types of things that may go on there when you think something is safe, but for various reasons, whether that's quality, production speed, and so on, it may have been circumvented. So that's it for this one. Please do keep an eye out. We will do more of these coming up. Monday morning will be hopefully a recurring one, and we may add a few more on top of that during the week. So just keep an eye out. Make sure you're subscribed. I don't like saying it, but if you do find value in these little live sessions, please do hit the like button and do subscribe to the channel so that we can let you know when our next one is. And I'll just finish on, if you haven't already heard me saying it, we're trying to give away 1 million free courses at safety.com, our online training platform. So if you haven't seen that or haven't used it, please do check it out, and I'll leave some links below for you to look at that. So thanks for your time, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.